Anna Bravo. I don't need to say a lot to introduce her. I will just say that she has been working on women's history, deportation, non-violence in the history, and the title of her speech, that is connected with the title of her latest book, is A Country and the Story of Saved Blood.
Grazie per questo invito.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I am really interested in what is being done in Nonantola. And I really reflected upon how I could help this project, Davanti a Villa Emma, with reference to what I did in the latest years, in recent years, looking for stories of saved blood. A typical event, a typical case, that of Denmark. Up to 20 years ago, there was a legendary image of people rising against the Nazis to protect Danish Jews. But the latest studies showed a different situation, which was, well, richer, more interesting. And then there is another thing I'm doing at the moment that could be useful for the project. I'm trying to put together today's saved blood stories, and there are a few that are really relevant to the project. So, well, we need to understand what is the context for the facts of Nonantola. As Daniele said this morning, the public is an interpretation unit. We need to understand what the public has been thinking in recent years. We need to talk about a form of evaluation of the figure of what is good and right with reference to the events in Nonantola. Then I would like to talk about another topic, that is the temptation of good. And the third point will be the relationship between human relationships and the possibility to save people. Here there is something that is, well, that connects all the stories to the situation today. I would like also to say that when I talk about today's scenario, I do not mean to actualize the story of Nonantola, because this is a risk we must avoid. The foundation should protect the memory of the events in Nonantola with its specific aspects, its ambiguity, we all know very well. And then, well, there is this evaluation, this valorization of the figure of the good, of what is good, what is just. And this goes beyond the historical research. Many books were written on important actors such as Mandela, many other people. The latest book by Teatro, but the right, the justs are very important figures. But actually, these most recent books do not tell us anything new. They just repeat stories that we all know. There is no research. There is no query for other stories, for new stories. And this is a problem, because on the one hand, we have this big quantity of studies focusing always on the same people. On the other hand, this is matched by the valorization of good deed, which is good, which is positive, obviously, in itself. There are many letters written to newspapers of people that ask newspaper to recount also good stories, not only horror stories. And in one of the main Italian newspapers, Corriere della Sera, now there is a section devoted to the so-called good stories. But I do believe that there is a risk behind this. That is to say that the connection or the difference between the stories of justice and the story of good could actually be somehow weakened, and they are all put together into the same category. Obviously, there are some common things. There is, well, the courage of these people, the fact that they were ready to risk their lives. Good deeds actually could represent a risk for people's life. But, well, if someone does something which is right, say this person says no to something, to a certain form of power, to an ideology, to a state, a certain kind of state, as for instance ISIS, and this is well a form of opposition, of confrontation. And I am afraid that this image that can be passed on, the image of Nonantola, that can be passed on by media, is based on this feelings of the heart. As Naram said, and I always quote her because I really appreciate what she says. Well, why? Because the heart is somehow a consequence. I think that in order to recognize that a boy needs help, you first need to go against the image that you are given of that very boy. And this holds true for all people who need protection. They can be refugees, they can be prisoners, they can be partisans. People have a mental image of these people, and there is a mechanism that says, well, maybe that prisoner, he is not an enemy, as I have told he is. So this is a way of reasoning, of going against the political ideology of a certain state. Without this shifting from what the state wants you to think and what you really want to think, without this, there would be no action of the heart. So we need to really take into account this kind of aspect, the just of today. Well, here I just wanted to give you an example, because these people are not polarized enough. And I refer to the massacre in Sousse on the beach in Tunisia, and well, the media gave us information and pictures according to which the people working on the beach, they actually created a barrier in front of the terrorists. That's what the newspapers reported. Then social media started to say that they were actually behind the terrorists, so they were not actually creating a barrier. So at the end of these useless debate, an English tourist said, "What are you talking about? These people were there because they had just avoided, they had just stopped this terrorist from attacking another resort." So that was a strong reaction on the part of the tourist, because he was really shocked that this good deed was not recognized. And this goes against a form of order, a form of ideology. So it goes against a certain form of power. So this is something we really need to understand, because this work of these people, what these people did in Tunisia, was aimed at saving blood. And there are so many other examples, but I don't have the time to talk about all of them. So these are just deeds that are not recognized as just. And these could end up in that big category of what is good, which is, in my opinion, not really significant. So the public opinion could project on Nonantola this way to look at good people as if they were saints, turning them into a legend, something that is completely outside history. But that's not what happened, because people needed time to evolve, to mature, before they started supporting these young Jews. They did that because they felt for them, but at the same time, they were not seen as the victims of Hitler. They were seen as young people in need. So it's a very complicated form of dynamics. So, well, of course, there are the community traditions of Nonantola, but we need to keep in mind that there is also another element besides traditions. Emilia-Romagna is an area where Pampolini's humanitarian socialism was very strong. So it was a humanistic, a humanitarian form of socialism, and this is extremely important. And the Catholic laws at local level did not share the anti-Semitic ideology of the government. So again, here the community is the result of different inputs, in different forces. So there can be the help that young people give to the Jewish young people. There are the traditions, but this heritage from Pampolini was still very strong in 1943. Having said that, I would like to move on to the second part of my presentation, that is to say the temptation of good. And I hope I am not neglecting anything, because there are so many things I actually wanted to tell you anyway. So the temptation of good. This is what makes people want to be the representative of what is good. And this is something which is quite common today. People want to have the monopoly of what is good, to be specialized in good. At the time, and in the stories we are told, there is no such temptation. What is interesting in all these tales and stories, because I really, read and heard a lot of different stories, all the people who actually saved other people just said a few words. What else could I do, for instance? They were in need and I was there. That's what you have to do. And this is something that is common to so many different countries. And I do believe that this is is not just because they do not want to make themselves big for what they did, which is a good thing in itself. But I think that these people think that there is not so much to understand, and there is no need for words to understand. So their tales are quite short, brief. These people simply say that this was a priority choice, or even they say that there was no other choice. So this kind of choice becomes a political choice, an operational choice. And this is, this is certainly a very important element, which is not present only in Italy, but also in Denmark. I don't think there is any complex, long story. People simply know that these facts took place. Having said that, there is this temptation of good that comes from somewhere else, maybe from mass media. And this temptation, and here I would like to talk about Luca Rastrello, who wrote a book on the good professionals, a very beautiful and interesting book, as well as so many others. So really well tackled this kind of aspect, focusing on the risks that were connected with good deeds and could transform people into the monopolists of good deeds. Well, mass media often take this path. The social architecture of gurus and authorities, spiritual authorities, that you can find on every media. Well, this is something that the future visitors of this memorial site has always seen. So these people, future visitors, run the risk to look at the Nonantola people from this point of view. So we need to protect the complexity of Nonantola. Otherwise, we would make a big mistake. And sociologists, in particular German sociologists, tried to outline a selfless personality, but there's no selfless personality. There are selfless people. There are no good people and evil people. There are people who take up certain behavior, but then they can also take up a contradictory behavior. There are no angels, there are no saints. And this aspect needs to be fought. These trends towards the idea of a good Italian, a good farmer, a good mother, this doesn't take us anywhere. But it is a very strong trend. And I will give you a concrete example of this temptation applied by in this case, by the English media, which gives me also the opportunity to remind you a very interesting case of a right deed by an English woman, Ingrid Loyo. I don't know whether you have already heard about her. The scenario is this: a crowded street, a bus overloaded with mothers with the children. Two Islamic terrorists, had just cut the throat to an English soldier. And they start saying that they want to bring the war in the heart of London. So they have their knives stained with blood. So out of the bus comes this lady, and she decides to go and talk to the terrorists. The pictures were not very good because they were pictures taken with the smartphones, but you can really see the shocked expression of the terrorist. And this lady was talking to him as if she was actually reprimanding him, as if he was just a boy that was doing something wrong. And I do believe that she is doing the right thing, because she does not, she's not subject to the power of the knife, and she only uses as a weapon her own words. Obviously, you need to be, well, to have a great courage, and you need to be able to confront the power of the knife in the hands of this young terrorist. When this lady was interviewed, she didn't say anything particular. She said he was overexcited and it was wanted to try and calm him down. And so now we have the story of the angel of Woolwich, and she's seen, well, this lady is seen as an angel who probably saved these children and their moms. After a few days, it comes, well, the newspapers start telling the story that this same lady had mistreated an old Nigerian man. So she's not an angel. She was not angel enough, but she never wanted to be an angel. She never said she was one. So this is a typical example of how the temptation of good is rejected by the person who did something right and is on the contrary, applied by the media. So when we will have a place to remember Nonantola, we need to keep in mind that public opinion has this point of view, starts her evaluation from this perspective. So you will have to find out something, because people, visitors, future visitors will have these images in their heads. And now I have my third point. I think I am actually taking up too much time. Anyway, I'm trying to summarize. These saving relationships. There is a sentence in the book by Klaus Voigt which says, these people were saved because they were welcomed. And this is due to many different elements, chance as well. And in a way also, there is also this random, so to speak, element. But a very important element is that of the human relations. Relations work both within, for instance, Jewish communities that support economically the young people in Nonantola. And these relationships increase and grow by living together, playing football together, working together in a carpenter's workshop. And the fact that old songs of the 30s are still remembered by these former young people who lived here for 1 year, that means that there was a contact, there was a relationship with the locals. So on the one hand, we have opened doors because you are no longer hiding someone who's in need. You're hiding your son's friend. You're hiding the girl you met in the shop in the morning. And this, in a way, this presence of relationships, of real connections, goes against any form of criticism, because you could be asked, why didn't you tell us before that Jewish people used to live there? But the community would react, as in Denmark. It was not true that all the Danish people were in favor of the Jews. But it is true that the majority were, and this is an extremely important aspect. It's so to speak, an element of protection. And then there is a second element, which is just as important, that is to say the emotional weight of these relations. I don't think that Nonantola can be a place where you create the theory of rights. This is more a way to find a remedy to a terrible offense that was made against these young people. What does this mean? This means that these people did not feel lonely, and apart from the essential, these young people were given relationships. So there was a community here in Nonantola, and there were the Jewish community, which are not so close, but they were present anyway. So this fact that these people knew they were not alone is extremely important. Nicholas was talking about the different events and experiences of these young people. Well, even though these young people in Nonantola did not have such bad experiences, but they knew they were in danger. When they found someone that saw them as persons with a value. So this is essential, because persecution is based exactly on this, on seeing people not as persons. And Nonantola, in a way, made it possible for these young people to rebuild themselves. And this mechanism is the same in so many other situations where there were Jews and non-Jews, prisoners and non-prisoners, and then we'll now conclude. This gives these saved young people the gift of being grateful, because being grateful is a very good feeling. It means I do acknowledge that I needed help. I needed your help. So if you acknowledged that I needed help, you have in a way reinforced me as a person, and it is a way to create something also for the future. Then there are many different forms of thankfulness, but well, anyway, this is a form of recognition, so to speak. And I do believe that there are things that we can learn with reference to the problem of immigration. The importance to create something that is similar to a home. When they take a few of these young people to Switzerland and then they come back, it is just like just like going home for them. So it is extremely important, and then this, is an aspect that we should probably pay a lot of attention to when working on this project. And this is something that has to be taken into account also in reference to today's refugees. This connection between relationship and saving people. And I believe this is an important lesson we must learn, and we should not accept an actualization that takes away the importance of this aspect. And this is something that gives people a dignity, the fact that they feel they are not alone. So this is exactly what we should try to do. Thank you.